Hello everyone, welcome to Cottage Cottage Diary. I'm Annie and I thought today, before Daisy uploads her moving in to Oxford video, I would show you our cottage kitchen. It's a very, very small kitchen. It's a very small cottage. We call it our little hobbit house. And we moved from a much bigger farmhouse into this cottage a few years ago, and had to be very selective on what we brought with us and what we got rid of, which was actually very therapeutic, because when you just have in your home what you love and what you need, then it's very satisfying to only have those things. When we lived in a much bigger property, we had rooms that we just furnished and decorated just for the sake of it, because they needed doing. Whereas now we just literally have things that we love or need. Our style is very vintage. I don't like anything new. We had to do a lot to the cottage when we moved in. This inglenook fireplace here wasn't here. It had been covered up in the 60s and bricked in. And there was psychedelic 60s wallpaper everywhere. So it didn't have any character at all. So first thing we did was try and bring that back by exposing the beams and taking off the awful wallpaper and knocking through the inglenook fireplace. I just thought I would give you sort of some tips on, if you've also got a relatively small kitchen and like a vintage look, what you can do. So yeah, my biggest piece of advice really would be that have lots of things out, but whatever you have, make it beautiful or in keeping with your aesthetic. So I knew we wouldn't be able to have fitted cupboards anyway in here, it's too small. So we've got open shelving, and all our pasta and rice, flour, so basically all our dried products are on this shelf here. And then we've got a pot for utensils. We've again maximised our use of space by having a shelf right up there which touches the beams. This is our spice cabinet, so our salts and all our herbs, dried herbs and spices are in there. We've got our breadboards hanging up there, and again I would say that's a really good tip, that just have everything on show if you can find an attractive version of the functional item that you need. So we've got what most people have got. We've got our vintage bread bin up here, and in fact if we go a little bit closer we can look at this shelf here. So again, this has got sugar in pots, couscous in pots. The top sort of casserole dish isn't for that, it's for sort of sweet treats. We've got our garlic pot, teapot bowls, water jugs, lots of sort of jugs for flowers, milk cream jug. We're actually vegan, so Henrietta here, we don't store eggs in. We have her for storing fresh tomatoes that we pick from the greenhouse. And again, you know, we've got nice vintage enamel colanders. So everything, you know, our sugar's stored in this lovely vintage copper container here. And we've got this basket's adorable. Bought it years ago on eBay. It's the cutest, it's absolutely tiny. But we use that. It's not just, everything in the cottage has to be functional as well as beautiful. There isn't the room to just have beautiful things. That basket is used all the time. When we go and pick our tomatoes from the greenhouse, we use it. When we pick strawberries from the garden or other berries from the garden, we use it. When we collect edible mushrooms or blackberries or whatever it might be, we always use that. This is a very sweet little item that just has all our essential oils in. Again, along the theme of everything out, we've got our vintage cutlery tray here. So yeah, it's quite easy to get a sort of pleasing aesthetic, even having lots of functional things out. So I'm just going to take you to the stairs. So I don't know if other people do this, but if you've got a small cottage, you may well do it. Instead of just keeping things within the kitchen per se, we've also got a lot of functional items up on the stairs and going up the stairs. So this is a case in point. We've got our mop and bucket. If you've got a plastic one, obviously you're not going to want to have it out because it ruins the sort of the look. Obviously, if you've got storage, that's not a problem. You can just chuck it away. But if you've got to have things out, make them beautiful. So, I mean, it may be going a step too far to say that that's beautiful, but there's something about its sort of simplicity and its sort of vintage look that I find quite pleasing. So it's a vintage mop bucket that I found in a secondhand shop. And then, yeah, it's just a regular sort of wooden broom. One thing that was a little bit special that I managed to find, which again is ideal, is, if I step back a bit, you'll be able to see it, is this vintage ironing board. I don't know how old it is, but it's a lovely wooden one. And again, you wouldn't want a modern ironing board hanging up on the wall there. It would look absolutely awful and ruin the look of the place. But because it's vintage, it actually adds something, I think, to the space, as well as being obviously a functional item, which I'm pleased to say I don't use too often because I hate ironing, but it obviously is used. We then just got a tray next to it for carrying items to other rooms and into the garden. And here, this is where we store all our jams, jellies, pickles and chutneys that we have grown in the garden. And we've got a couple of little pumpkins that we grew and some elderberry and rosehip vodka that we made last year. Above that, I might need to zoom out a bit. Above that, we've got a lovely vintage drying rack, wooden drying rack, which again, I literally have no cupboard, very little cupboard space. There's nowhere to put a drying rack. If it had been a plastic one, I wouldn't have wanted to display it, but I wouldn't have had any option. Whereas finding a vintage wooden one means that I'm quite happy to display it, and I actually think it adds something to what would just be a very boring space. Sorry, this is going to be a bit awkward because I'm going to have to twist and turn around on this very small staircase. So I'm just going to look at it from a little bit higher up. I'm just walking up the stairs, and you'll now see how things are arranged. So this is basically, I'm standing at the top of the stairs and I'm looking down the stairs, going down toward the kitchen. So we've got our lovely wickerwood washing basket. We've got our pegs there, the drying rack, the preserve cabinet, the tray, and then the ironing board. So basically we've absolutely made the most of the space by storing as many things as possible going up the stairs, but have managed through sort of, you know, lots of searching, but managed to find items that actually also enhance and add to the look of the cottage. So here's another picture of the ingle nook, which I absolutely love. And in the at Christmas time, well, solstice we celebrate really, we have ivy hanging from it, and it's very cute. So we've just, yeah, here got a very old sort of scrubbed pine table, and we've got the door that leads through to the living room. We've got all our pans and grater, etc., hanging up over the sink. It was the only place, because literally you can touch the ceiling. It's such a tiny little cottage. That was the only space that you could hang them without concussing yourself. So we've got, that's Daisy's little high chair there from when she was little. We've got our herbs hanging up here. I don't generally hang herbs for culinary use up in the kitchen. We've bought a dehydrator, so we do that for culinary herbs, but we use these herbs for other things. Then again, making the most of the space, another bookshelf on top of our little cupboard, and this is essentially the only sort of cupboard space we've got. So we've got plates excuse me, in the top, and first aid and vitamin tablets and things. Then in the middle space we've got tin goods like tin tomatoes and chickpeas and things, and then in the bottom we've got cat litter, because we've got 2 cats, and just sort of cleaning supplies. Over here next to the sink is where I keep tea and coffee, all our mugs, all our cups. Again, I've made sure that they're all sort of vintage and in keeping. These are lovely little goblets here that I managed to get on Etsy. So yeah, everything is functional but beautiful. We've got a little washing up sort of cloth in there that Daisy hand crochets from scraps of wool and things, instead of us buying plastic sponges and things. Daisy crochets a little sponge, a little cloth for us every now and then obviously when it's sort of falling apart, we can just throw it on the compost heap, which is great. We have washing up liquid and things all in these lovely brown glass containers, which again, it means I don't have to find space in a cupboard to put it away, because it's beautiful just out on the countertop. So yeah, that would be my main tip really, if you've also got a tiny little cottage or an apartment or whatever. Try and find as many sort of beautifully functional items as you can. So we'll be with you again. We might try and film. I'm taking Daisy to move into Oxford University tomorrow, and we may try and film the moving in process, but it's going to be a very emotional one, as you can imagine. when you have a close relationship with your child and, in Daisy's case, mum. So we will endeavour to film that process, but we may not manage to do it. But Daisy will be back with a tour of her Oxford University room when she's decorated it. So I hope that was interesting and enjoyable for you. If you've got any questions, please put them in the comments below, and if you liked it, yeah, think of subscribing. That would be really nice to build up a community here. Anyway, enjoy the rest of the Sunday. Bye.